Hello, and welcome to Health and Fitness Redefined. I'm your host, Anthony Amen. Join me today as we take a dive into the world of health and fitness. We'll learn to overcome adversity to pick back to its fiction and see health and fitness in a whole new light. Wow, I felt like I sped saying at that time. Anyway, we have a great guest on today and a great story. I do love some motivational stories, learning about different types of techniques and things to hopefully help make you feel better and live longer. So without further ado, let me welcome to the show Etienne. I think I got his name right this time, but it's a
Absolutely.
pleasure to have you on today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I'm excited to talk a little bit about your story, kind of get an idea of what happened to you when you were young. I mean, I do know, but I want my audience to hear from you. So tell us a little bit about kind of what got you started into what you're doing today.
Well, yeah, as you know, I have gray hair. So the story started more or less, um, so some 40 years ago, almost 50 years ago. I'm a child of the post war Europe. So I grew up very, almost military. After the war, people were kind of very strict in the upbringing. And, then when I was in my teens, the 60s happened. And that was a great time. Everybody started to smoke weed. There was the Beatles, the Rolling Stones. That whole thing just exploded. It was like the world exploded. And for me also, I became a gym teacher. That was very nice to teach children, some movement. And for me, it was more or less after a strict upbringing, it was party time. And more or less middle of the 70s, I got involved with, you could say, the new age explosion. All kinds of therapies started to happen. Meditation came up, bio energetics, primal scream, all that stuff started to happen. And at the same time, I was still partying a lot. And at one point, I got an infection. Um, um, some bacteria, a quite dangerous bacteria, a staphylococcus, came into my bloodstream. And that's where my whole life turned upside down. What happened before that, you could say, was for me, my first life. And I'll explain that in a minute. But with that infection, the bacteria started, of course, in my bloodstream. First thing they encounter is the heart. And these bacteria, they're just looking for food. And if they're in your body is food for them. So they ate my valves. Uh, then that was a very strange experience. Within 2 days, I had no more energy. My blood wasn't pumping at all. It was just being, it pumped anywhere. So it was a very strange thing. I was a very energetic person. Basketball, volleyball, all kind of stuff. Being a gym teacher, I was doing, but suddenly no more energy, nothing. And then they got into my kidneys and they started eating my kidneys. Now I found myself within a week without a heart that was really functioning, and also one kidney, because they eat very fast, I tell you. One kidney was close to 70% dead material, and the other kidney close to 90. So that's a death sentence. The heart, kidneys, not everything failing. And that was total panic. Absolute. Knowing that you're going to die at that age, I was maybe 40, 41. Knowing that you're going to die is quite strange. So, I panicked, total panic. And I blew up. my pee wouldn't leave my body anymore because my kidneys didn't function. So yeah, it was very strange to look at myself in the mirror and see a face that I didn't recognize, but also inside, my feeling of my body was totally different. It was like I was living in a body I didn't recognize. And yeah, the panic, of course. So I didn't know what to do. Luckily, I was in a friend's house, and they gave me a room that I could stay. And they asked me what to do. I said, just leave me alone, I don't know what to do. But yeah, I did a meditation, and this was something I knew already from before. It was, yeah, a music tape. I put it on, and the meditation is all about humming. So I started to hum, and within 15 minutes, yes, something miraculous happened. I just, from one moment to the next, was in total no mind. There was absolutely no thought anymore in my brain. It was just total silence and total acceptance also of what had happened to me. The panic went away like it had never been there, and I was in that total silence, which was amazing place to be. And of course, my body was still damaged totally. So they brought me to the hospital, and they gave me medication to, yeah, get my kidneys to work again. But that didn't do much. Yeah, I could now let go of the water in my body, but my kidneys without the medication didn't function. So the next thing I knew, they put me in a room with people double my age, 80 years old, 90 years old, a room where people are put who are going to die. So, wow, I found myself there, but still, I was in that no mind space. And then one of the most beautiful things happened. One night, about 2, 3 o'clock at night, middle of the night, people started dying. We were six in the room, and it was very mathematical almost. The very first person, and the next, and the next, and the next. I was number five in a row, and one after the other died. And being in that no mind space, I could so clearly see how person dies and the difference between the people dying. And at one point, it was my turn to go. My body was totally damaged. And I just laid back, and, I could feel how the body started to disintegrate. Yeah, later I found the same story back in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, where they describe how a body, it disintegrates. They describe it with the four elements that they talk about. And I could feel that, the heaviness, the cold, the ice cold, and then the heat and stuff like that. So at one point, there is the element air that comes in, which basically means you explode. Yeah. And I could feel that. At a certain point, my body just exploded into millions and millions of light points. It's very strange to say that, but I became the Milky Way. It's like my consciousness just expanded so much that I, yeah, became all these stars around, which was an amazing thing to feel. And then, when that was happening, there was absolutely no thoughts or anything. I was just experiencing that. And then there is this moment that the person number six of those six people in that room, it was his turn also to die, but he couldn't. Something in him didn't allow him to go there. And suddenly I felt myself back in the body from being in that explosion. Suddenly I was back in the body. And the first thing I felt was I didn't fit anymore in the body. But anyway, I turned around and put my hand, he was very close. The bed was very close. I put my hand on his chest, on his heart. And, this is a crazy thing to say, but I saw my hand go into his chest. Of course, that's impossible. Something like that doesn't happen. But I was still in that space of that explosion. So, yep, I did see my hand go touch his heart. Something happened with his heart. And yeah, he stayed alive. Something broke in him, something he couldn't let go of. He was back, and I was back in a body that didn't function. Uh, we became good friends, but that's beyond not the point. I was back from the dead, you could say, in a body that didn't fit and that didn't function. The heart and the kidneys were still gone. So yeah, they kept giving me medication, and I knew, if I keep taking this medication, I'm certainly gonna die. The first time didn't work, but the medication will certainly kill me. So, so I called a friend at one point. I couldn't stay in the hospital. This was in the Netherlands, in Europe, and my friend came, and I asked him to drive me to the woods in Belgium, in the south of Belgium. So I knew I needed to go there. So yeah, we go in the car, drive up, yeah, half a day to get there. And then it was already dark. Luckily, it was in the middle of the summer. So we start going, and I tell him this road, that road, that road. I had no clue. But anyway, we ended up in a dead end in the middle of the woods. And we stopped, put up a tent, and went into the tent to sleep. And I could feel that his presence, the tent, it was too small. I needed to get out. So I got out, middle of the night, it was summer, and I started wandering in the forest there. And then I see not so far away a little place where the trees formed a circle. And that place was giving light. There was a light there. And of course, middle of the forest, there is no electricity. But anyway, I was attracted to that spot and to the light there. Now it was maybe midnight. Then, all right, I've thought, this is what I'm looking for. This is the place for me to go to sleep. And whatever happens, happens. So all right, I went to sleep, and it was so wonderful. These are pine forests, so a thick layer of pine needles, very soft to lay. And as soon as I laid back on the ground, I closed my eyes, and the same moment I was out of the body, just looking from above at the body between those trees. And I lay there, and then all these little animals came to see what's happening. I saw a fox, another fox. I saw a few snakes. I saw a boar, a big, big boar with a whole bunch of small ones. They all came to check out what's happening. And what really impressed me, was amazing. None of them touched the body. They were just, seeing what is happening there. And the respect was unbelievable. And at this, all the time, I was just, watching what is happening in the body. And then in the morning, the sun comes up, and the heat of the sun allowed me to be back in the body. So I sat there a whole day. My friend came once in a while with a bit of soup. We talked a little bit, but there was nothing to say actually. So I just sat there the whole day. And at night I went back, laid down, and the same thing happened. 4 nights in a row. Then I told my friend when he came in the morning, all right, I'm done. Let's go back. And went back to town. Back to a week later, I went to the hospital for a checkup because I felt totally different. And they checked the heart, they checked the kidneys. My heart was 100% fine. All the valves had regrown, and my kidneys also. They're both 100%. It was, you know, it was that 4 days in the forest that my whole body had just recovered. Yeah, it was amazing. And well, yeah, that's been the beginning of, for me, a whole new life. Yeah, that
That's a crazy story.
it is crazy. It is
I
crazy.
was totally silent. I don't. Usually I'm just like interjecting and I was. That was a crazy story. It felt so surreal. Like you described it so perfectly. I felt myself there.
Yeah. It's amazing, with my new girlfriend last year, we were in that neck of the woods and we went to the same spot. And I laid back on the ground there where I laid 40 years ago. This was in 1986, so that's quite a while ago. And I laid back at the same spot on the same earth. And again, I could feel the same energy entering me, that life force that the earth has is just amazing. But I had no clue what happened or what I did actually. It was a spontaneous, very spontaneous listening to my body what to do, a very spontaneous thing. And now I can explain a little bit. I've been trying in my work to, yeah, to go there and to explain actually what the body can do. And yeah, but that was crazy. I know it sounds like,
That's.
wow, what a thing to do. But I'm here. So many years later, and my body is perfect. Its heart is great. My kidneys are still functioning, and my health is just great. I
I mean,
haven't.
even just the point they put you in hospice.
What?
They put you in hospice in the hospital, which
Yeah,
basically
absolutely.
means, like you said, this is where you go to die.
Yeah. You
And
know,
you,
afterwards, that was one of my hobbies to go to hospice in the US then and, help people that were at that edge. Of course, I couldn't tell them, get out of the hospital, go to the woods and do what I did. But, I was so comfortable with people who are dying and going through that dying process that yeah, it was for a while my hobby to help people, to hold their hand or whatever that was needed, that they needed to go, yeah, and take the next step in their lives. And with the work I do, the craniosacral therapy I do, um, well, yeah, maybe I should explain what that is actually.
a
Yeah.
lot. I had to look it up, and I usually don't have to. So
Yeah.
I totally. But before we get into that, I just kind of want to talk about a more intriguing point without diving into it, and then a different point. So
Yes, yes,
the
go ahead.
the intriguing point, which I don't really want to dive into, but it's just so interesting to me, is what we feel when we are about to die and when we die. And you read a lot of different accounts from people, and most of them are the same, which
Yeah.
is pretty crazy. A lot talk about that warm, like light sensation, and they all say it's just the biggest beam of light that kind of surrounds you. It's either, like you said, coming out of you or coming towards you. It's just everyone has that same thought that's ever survived, basically on the verge of death.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's very
yeah,
curious.
Well, the way I experienced it, um, because I saw everybody, yeah, dying in a different way. There were four people before me, and everybody had a very different experience. They were old people, and I remember from before the death experience, the few days that I was in the same room with them. We were all in the room, and almost nobody could move anymore. Uh, but they were very, very angry, very sad, disappointed people. I could see that that for them was not a pleasure, not okay. What's next? If you're alive, you know what you're going to do the next day. You have a plan to do the next day. For these people, it was like, all right, it's finished, and they were bitter about it. They were angry about it. Some of them had no energy at all to be either angry or disappointed or any of that. I could see that these people, they were really scared, afraid to take the next step to go into dying. For me, on the other hand, because I was in that no mind space, I could just watch what was happening, like I was going to see a movie. That I was just a spectator, just looking at everybody going through that process. And and this is basically the essence of meditation, that you watch what is happening. Nowadays, it's called, there is this mindfulness meditation. It's basically instant mindfulness. You're there and you watch what is happening in the environment. And for me, it was also not just watching what is happening with these people, but at the moment that it was my turn, I was watching what was happening to the body, how the body starts to go through these different stages. And then, yeah, what else is happening? Yes, there is this explosion. There is this, yeah, basically you unite with existence out there. That was the thing that I felt. And, the lightness that they talk about, the light, um, I didn't get to that point that there was that light. I think if I had gotten there, I would not have returned to the body. But what happened to me was that, yeah, that explosion, but at the same time, being a witness of that, yeah, consciously watching everything that was happening. And yeah, you'd ask about what did I feel. I have to say there was no feeling whatsoever. Maybe the feeling of bliss. That was the only thing I remember. Total blissfulness, but not feeling sad, not feeling angry, not any of what we call feelings, but just a feeling of total acceptance, total watchfulness, total bliss. That the perfection of it all. That was my feeling. And also when that thing started to happen, when I came back in the body, that blissfulness stayed with me. Yeah, it's one of the things that I can still feel. If I switch to that, there is that, yeah, the bliss of being alive, basically. And also of, yeah, I was going to say of being alive and not being alive at the same time. It doesn't really matter. Yeah, there is this, um, yeah, watchfulness that took over.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting topic. And then kind of talking about what you mentioned with meditation and uh, even laying outside in the woods, like there's a lot to be said for that. Meditation has really started becoming a little more mainstream now. And I personally meditate once in a while, and it's definitely a different experience of, if anything, it helps control stress. It's a huge stress and mindfulness, and it brings you back into just kind of counting your breaths and understanding of where you are in space. And it's definitely a useful technique that I would definitely recommend. And uh, full disclosure, I'm writing a theory right now, and I'm going to emphasize this is totally a theory that our bodies are adapted to move in motion. Where my ideological theory behind this is that over thousands of years that we were a species, every time we got sick, we still had to move. We were constantly moving from space to space. There was no laying in bed for 15, 16 hours for multiple times a day. You had to move or you died from the elements. So you go back to Darwin's theories, which is survival of the fittest. So those that learned to heal while they were moving were the ones that passed on their genes.
Yes,
So uh,
yes.
I'm a full believer in this, which is why when I do get sick, I try to, at least at a minimum, go for a little walk outside, just 100, 200 feet, like really minimal amounts, depending how sick I am. But the last thing I'm going to do is lay in bed all day. It's just going to make it worse. And
You,
that's why I'm not sitting here being skeptical about you laying out in the woods. I mean, it's what we did for thousands and thousands of years. There was no towns and hospitals, and there was just you and nature.
yes, 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 but it's not just about being sick, that motion that you're talking about. When I met my girlfriend, had been alone for 10 years. Yeah, my former wife, she moved on more than 10 years ago, 11 years now. So when I met this woman, I was alone for about 8 years. And I had to relearn how to communicate, how to be in a relationship. And one of the things that I'm learning and that she's helping me to learn, sometimes, we get into an argument and I'm not very clear at telling what I want and stuff like that, just the regular stuff. And then, because I'm used to getting it my way, 10 years alone, there is only my way, right? There is nobody else to tell you what to do. So I'm used to that. And then I get stuck sometimes. I start pouting and stuff like that. And the way to get over it is to go up the hill behind me, walk and climb and move my body. And by the time I'm up there, I forgot all about the argument. Yeah, it's just gone because nature is there, plants are there, trees are there, the light, the sun, everything is there. I get tired, and yeah, my body, the motion takes over. And by the time I'm back, that it's all gone. And these emotions and all of it that are in the way, you burn them up. That's what that's happening, everything, sickness also. Yeah, you move your body and your body starts to move, your cells, your immune system wakes up, and it burns everything that is not supposed to be in the body. And if I come down from the hill, I'm a totally different person. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there with motion. Yeah, we forget about that. Yeah, especially sitting in front of TV, you forget all about motion because motion is on the TV. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's totally true. And before we kind of jump into the different therapy you need to explain to my audience, I just want to tell everybody that we started a brand new company called F Squared Consulting. That is right, F Squared Consulting. You will get two experts. One is myself, obviously, health, fitness, mindset, goal setting. These are all things I'm going to help you with. And then my buddy Keith, who's going to help you with everything you could think of when it comes to finances. Your 401k, your Roth IRA, your debt consolidation, stock market, how to market all of this, figure out how to get yourself ahead in life. We decided to come together and help you guys. So if you really want a consulting company that's going to be there for you, get you on the right track, teach you how to do it. And that's the biggest key. It's all about teaching. It's all about making sure you don't need us for the rest of your life so you can take life lessons forever. Check it out. FitBodies, fatwallets.com. That is correct. It is FitBodies, BODIES, fatwallets.com. Check out the website for more info. Don't forget to mention this podcast for 10% off. I want to go back into what we were talking about for your craniotherapy. So what is it? And then we'll talk about a little more about how you can use it.
Well, you brought a wonderful idea with your new company. We also have a company. It's called Cranio. That's what I'm going to talk about it. But craniorocks.com. If people want to look at that, they come to my website, Cranio Rocks, like rock and roll. But anyway, what is craniosacral therapy? Forget the word therapy. Yeah, it is a therapy, but I don't like the word. I don't like to be a therapist that sounds so serious. Yeah, and there is already enough seriousness in the world. I rather call myself a practitioner. And nowadays, well, the last 30 years I've been teaching craniosacral all over the world a little bit. But how it works is actually uh, very, very simple. Of course, you need to train your hands so that you can feel the subtlety of the body. But what we do basically is the word cranio comes from cranium. It just means skull. And the skull has different bones. They move. There is a motion there. Yeah, inside is the brain. The brain is in a big bag. It's a membrane, a thick membrane. The brain is in there, the spinal cord is in there, and it sits in your spine and in your cranium. Now, our therapy is about feeling those different bones. And then, that's an amazing thing about the body, something that we discovered the last 20, 30 years. If you are subtle enough to just connect with those bones, they will tell you, they will let you feel what their best position is. It's of course very subtle. Yeah, these bones, they're almost fused, but they're not. They move with each other. So yeah, there is little discrepancy. So we give more space to the brain, and we do the same thing for the spinal cord. And if you do that, if the brain and spinal cord are in their maximum space possible, the whole body, which is around it, will listen to that because, hey, the brain is in charge of everything in the body. And so when we do that, the whole body starts to readjust itself. It's almost like a chiropractor, but without the cracking. Yeah, the cracking is quite invasive. It's manipulation. It's not really respectful to the body. So we just put our hands on, and that's the magic of this work, is that the body will tell what needs to be done. It's very subtle, but it's a readjustment of organs, of tissues, of the brain, the nerve system. And the result will be that everything, yeah, is going to function much, much, much better. And, to really understand this, there are a few things that we work with. And one of them is happening at the very beginning after conception. It goes all the way back to conception. Yeah, this whole craniosacral that we're doing. And it's about clarity. It's about, well, I put my foot now in a bee's nest here. Now I have to explain what what I mean. Otherwise, it's not going to make sense. But in the very beginning, when a simple cell, the fertilized egg, starts to create a body, yeah, the way that it works is it will create 4 layers of cells, no, 3 layers of cells. At that point, the cells have no form yet. They're all what we call stem cells. Now, a stem cell, the fertilized egg, has no form. It's just a little ball of water, a little drop of water. Yeah, there is some DNA in it, but you cannot say it's an eye or an ear, or it's just one cell. Now, this one cell sits on your chair, Anthony, and we call that cell Anthony or Etienne, yeah, in my case. And it created trillions of cells, one cell creating trillions of cells. Now, this is something that is never finished. Our body, the cells in our body, they only live for a few weeks, maybe a few months, and then they disappear, they are recycled. The simple fact is, my body, your body, is only 84 days old. That's the age of your body, but also of my body. Yeah. After, cells don't live that long. So it's a continuous recreation. Now, to continue that, we need these stem cells in our life, in our body, to keep on doing that. They have that magic that one cell can clone itself. Now you have 2. And when they clone again, you have 4 and 8 and so on. And when they clone, and this is the magic, they don't lose any energy. They are exactly the same. They don't lose any of their possibilities. They are absolutely the same. And they can do this your whole life. And they need to do this your whole life because, hey, cells live the totality of the body after 84 days. Everything needs to be replaced. So this keeps going on your whole life. That alone, and that's one of the things that we know how to connect with, is how can we connect to these stem cells in the body to ask them to recreate something. Last week I ended the class, a brain class, and in that we go and look into the brain, into uh, arteries and veins in the brain, to see where do we need to uh, remake, repair those cells in the body, those veins, those arteries. So one of the things that we need to learn here is how to connect to these stem cells in the body and ask them to work for us. Now, that's one thing. Shall I go on?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Our bodies do recycle ourselves, and it's the cells you have today aren't the cells you had when you were 5.
Yes, yes, yes,
Not
yes.
at all. Then it just comes a point that after replicating so more, the DNA starts getting damaged, which then ultimately causes whatever is going to kill you, in
Yes,
essence.
yes. So I was going to explain that craniosacral. Yeah. So when it starts, that first cell creates three layers of stem cells. One layer is going to create the outside of the body, the skin and everything that connects to the air. One layer creates all the organs, and one layer will create the connective tissue in the body. That's a simplistic way of explaining it. So you have these three pancakes, actually. Yeah, that's stem cells. There is no form yet. And then there is suddenly a line that appears in the middle. The notochord is officially called, we call it the midline. And when that line happens, the three layers close and they form a tube. Yeah, that's what is now the spinal cord. Yeah, but at that moment, it is so small you need a microscope to look at it. Now, once the tube is into place, it starts to, yes, cells out of that starts to go out, stem cells, and they start creating the body. But what I wanted to say when that midline appears, well, if it doesn't appear, same thing happens, the pancakes close, growth starts to happen, but pure chaos. Nothing can stay alive. It keeps creating, but it can't stay alive. When the tube happens, suddenly there is clarity about what those cells need to do, what their purpose in life is. They suddenly realize that. And then the next thing that happens is clarity about where do they need to move in the body to fulfill their life task, and what is the time that they need to do that. Now, that's for that moment. But that midline, every cell listens to that midline, the clarity about it. And that's what we can connect with again when we do our therapy. We have ways yet to touch the body, and that's so simple. When you go sit at the head, put your hands on the shoulders. In the middle is the midline. Now, the magic, and this is the magic that happened in the woods. When I was in the woods, I was not thinking at all. My mind was at zero, no thoughts whatsoever, just pure intuition, just pure, I call it no mind. It's a term used in meditation. That was happening in the woods. Now, when we go and put our hands on the shoulders of a client and we connect to that midline, we are that's the magic of the midline also. Your mind goes blank. And midline again, we go into that midline, into that intuition, into that no mind space, and cells in the body, the cells that created the body, there was no brain, no mind to direct them. That knowing, that knowledge how cells make a body, that's part of that. Yeah, you can call it that no mind space, that intuition, that life force.
I
That
want to add to this a little more, if you don't mind. It's just a theory. It's not really much a theory. This is actually way more than that now. But we can think that we're sick and make ourselves sick. We can, as men, think that we're pregnant, even though it's impossible, and start developing a belly. So it's very possible. I mean, not going to have anything inside, but you're going to start experiencing the symptoms of pregnancy. Like our brains, if we think too much, and then this is what you're trying to get at, will exacerbate anything. If we are sick and we start panicking about being sick, if we get anxiety about being sick, we're going to get sicker. Whereas so you're saying where we go into like using meditation as an example and trying to open up your mind and get rid of those stresses, your body's just going to go fix the issue instead of spending all its time trying to cope with your anxiety of you thinking you're sick.
absolutely, and I have an example here about what you're just saying. The whole COVID story. Yeah, it was such a misconception about bodies. Yeah, with COVID, and this is a global thing that happened. What happened with COVID? Panic, fear, total fear. Now, if you know a body and you know how a body functions, if you make somebody scared, they go into a fight flight mode. Yeah, which means they produce fight flight hormones. And if that happens, and this is so simple, every anatomy book in school will tell you that. If your body goes into a fight flight mode, it uses all the energy to produce those hormones. And what happens when you do that? Your immune system, boom, goes to 10%, meaning you're totally vulnerable for any virus to come in, even a flu virus like COVID. To me, it's nothing more than that. That can come in. And of course, if you're at zero and there is a global panic and there is no injections ready yet, then of course people gonna go even more and more panicking.
Oh,
Yeah, so
it's so true. Panic creates sickness, and stress creates sickness. It's all due to the cortisol levels of not sleeping and having that fight and flight you were kind of
absolutely,
talking about.
absolutely.
Over anxiety causes sickness. I mean, I used this example before, but I was working 80 hours a week when I first started my company, not sleeping, and a little flu virus put me down and out for like
Of
10
course,
days.
of course, of
And
course.
it was burnout. I was burnt out from working. My immune system was totally shot. So little virus, boom, out. So it's the example of you need to not put yourself into those situations so you don't get super sick, because ultimately it's just going to harm you. Same
Yeah,
thing reason people get sick while traveling. They're stressed.
yeah,
So getting somewhere, leaving somewhere, it's a lot of stress. Got to get here, got to get here, got to get here. They get sick and bada bing, bada boom. So it's, you nailed it on the head with that. It's everywhere. That's in every anatomy book, kind of like you said. But it's an interesting type of uh, therapy or practice, I guess, which is what you wanted to kind of call it.
well,
But
yeah,
it's different, and I'm relating to it a little bit more because I did see it was created by an osteopath, which is obviously very influential with my family. But the alignment of the spinal cord is definitely something that's useful. I don't know much about craniotherapy like you've talked about. I've never experienced it. I've never personally done it. So I really don't have an opinion from a self account from it. But I will say that if anything can help align and get the pressure off of the nerves that travel down your spinal column, it will help your body function better, because that's how your brain sends messages to every organ in your body and everything you do. It's how to function. It's not things you're thinking about, like your heart beating. But if it's struggling sending that electric signal, it's ultimately going to damage your heart over a long period of time. So
yes.
it's definitely interesting and definitely something I'm going to do more research on in the future.
Yes, find somebody who does craniosacral in your neighborhood and have a session. It's something to feel. Now, about the mind creating sickness, one of the things, and of course, in our Cranio we have a bunch of courses that we teach, and one of the very first courses that we teach is called Talking to the Heart. Now, this is very simple. The heart is the center of our being, and uh, when we are born, that heart needs to be protected because we're so small. So that heart has a heart protector that sits around it. And that can become very, very thick, very, it's a membrane basically, but mentally almost, it has to protect the heart from not being damaged. And then when we grow up, we feel that sometimes love cannot penetrate. We can't receive love, or even giving love becomes very, very difficult. Now, in the class, talking to the heart, and I will not go into detail about it, but what we do, and this is quite an interesting way, we lend our voice to the heart protector, the pericardium, to talk to us about, we can converse with it about, how it needs, what it needs to do at this point. But then the main thing is we lend, it's a trick. We lend our voice to the heart. And if the client is in their mind, if they're thinking, and you ask what is your heart saying, of course, the answer is going to come from their mind. It's a typical, you ask something and the person looks up, and then you know they're thinking. They look at their brain, they're oh yeah, and the answer comes from their mind. They give a safe answer. But if you're able to talk to the heart itself, and now the heart can tell the person, yeah, what it is that they forgot, what it is that they need to do in the future. Yeah, from straight from the heart, the person, knows that, but they're so in their minds usually that they really cannot connect to what their being is saying to them, what their soul, the heart is a soul, what their soul wants from them, what to be happy, to be alive. What does that soul needs to say to them? So that's one of the things that in our therapy, I think that's basically one of the main things that we connect to with a client is, what is your heart really, really, really saying to you, how to live your life, what is in the way for you to be as happy as you can be. And those conversations, they will change a person. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And Etienne, I do want to go ahead and wrap this up a little bit. So I'm going to ask you to summarize all of that we spoke about in the last hour into one or two sentences as a take home message
Oh, I
for
thought I
those who are
had
looking.
another hour to do that. One or two sentences. Well, one of the things, craniosacral therapy, go to our website if you want to know more. Cranio Rocks. That's very easy, like rock and roll. Craniorocks.com. And there's a few videos, listen to the videos. But of all, have a craniosacral session. Give yourself a vacation. It's basically a vacation from yourself, a vacation from your mind, from the thoughts. Yeah. In an hour, you can experience something that you knew as a child, peace of mind. Peace of mind only happens when your mind is turned off. And as a child, you were totally alive. Totally. And nowadays, you are probably have children yourself, you have work, you're all in your head. And to get out of it, then life starts. If you get out of your head, life starts. So have cranio or go into nature. Nature is the best healing place you can be. Go for a hike, go swim in a lake, go into the ocean and have a few strokes. But be careful, Long Island is quite dangerous water there, right? All right.
Then the second question, Etienne, is I know you mentioned the website, but just real quick again, how can people find you, get a hold of you?
Craniorocks.com.
Craniorocks.com. Etienne, thank you so much for coming on. And guys, thank you for listening to this week's episode of Health and Fitness Redefined. Don't forget, please hit the subscribe button and join us next week as we dive deeper into this ever changing field. And remember, fitness is medicine, and so is going out and... For us, we know what it's like to feel unhealthy, depressed, and downright defeated. We want to show others there is a right way, and through fitness, you can do anything you set your mind to. Fitness can give you that motivation, confidence, energy you need to bridge that mental gap and prevent you from missing important life events. We understand it's about feeling better, living longer, and being good examples for our kids. We understand this because we live it. And for us, that's the Redefine difference.